Hi and welcome to Dynamics Update, and this time it's one of the regular episodes, and we have actually made it all the way from version 6 where we started to version 30, which I think is fairly cool. And with me as usual I have Gustav Sundblad.
Hello, Johan.
How are you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's a bit late in the evening, but that's when I can get the peace and quiet to do these kind of things.
Yeah.
So that's not always a bad thing.
It's not always. And you and I did lunch yoga today as well, mentioning to the crowd, right?
Yes. I feel
feel
so healthy. But while our colleagues went to Pizza Hut and had pizza buffet.
Yeah. Perfect balance in life. Either you go with Pizza Hut or you go with lunch yoga. That's but it was good. Loosening up.
Yes, but now we are not going to talk about either yoga or Pizza Hut. We are going to talk about FnO, which is our favorite topic.
Of course.
And as usual, there is a new release out. And one of the things that I thought that we'd actually talk about is about the updates, about the quality updates. You had a reflection there.
Yeah, and we've mentioned or touched upon this subject before, but it popped up recently this week, and I've been hearing it some not so much confusion, but just it's worth emphasizing and clarifying that these podcasts are for each version. It's 29, it's 30, but it's not like there's only those releases. There are a lot of quality updates coming daily, on a mostly daily basis, and I think now we've also gone down to 7 releases per year, right? I think that's the case. And but you don't have to select. It's not only version 30. It's version 30 including the latest quality updates, so which you can get every day. And those are bug fixes containing the not new features, only bug fixes coming from this first release of that version up until next wave basically. So it's worth mentioning that you need to select a quality update to start with and ensure that you stay on the same quality update for testing purposes. But then it always makes sense. I think Johan, had a strategy that we discussed before to try to stay as close to the latest quality update as possible while also achieving, of course, room in your sprint for testing. But it's important to distinguish between quality updates and the actual version, that try to stay on top as late as possible to not have to run into bugs that are already fixed in a quality update.
Yeah, so my recommendation is basically when you start the sprint, go with the latest update you can find, the latest packaged with the latest quality updates, which happens to coincide with your sprint start. And then when you're done with the sprint and you are going to start UAT testing, then do a quality update package at just before you start the UAT testing, because the quality updates doesn't contain any kinds of features. It only contains hotfixes and bug fixes, which means that if there are bugs that you haven't discovered during the sprint, then you will most likely then Microsoft might have found them and fixed them, and you will not have to find them during the UAT testing. And since it only contains hotfixes, hopefully they haven't managed to introduce too many bugs in the hotfixes.
Yeah. And as always, they're cumulative, right? So getting the latest hotfix gives you all the other fixes as well. And I mean, it's even if you're not getting it, it makes sense to stay on top of the documentation here, because then if you encounter a bug, it's most likely more efficient for you to just go to the page, the KB page, listing all of the bugs that are fixed. And see if you're among them, if your particular bug is there, as opposed to creating a ticket and going through the hoops to find it out another way. And then you can take an informed decision of whether to go with it, or, as I think you mentioned as well before, Johan, or release something that you know is not working, if that's doable for you. It all depends on the scenarios, right?
It depends on how severe it is.
Yeah, of course.
And one recommendation there is actually when you do a quality update, you can actually go in through LCS and you can actually export the list of hotfixes to an Excel and just copy and paste them into the release notes. Yeah, exactly. Because then you have documentation, you have a paper trail. And also one of the important things that you said here is that since there are multiple releases actually every day, it's very, very, very important to have a process around this, because what will happen if you create a package and deploy it to an environment, you go into the environment in LCS, you click on available updates, and you create a package, and then you deploy it to the environment, and then you don't save the package in LCS, but you go into the next environment and you click give me all of the updates. That will not be the same updates as you had on the previous environment, because it might have been a couple of updates that were released after that. So, and what you absolutely don't want is environments that behave differently. You want them on the exact same build number to have them consistent.
Yeah.
So it's important that you save the package and that you tell all of the developers that this is the package to use. I know there are newer updates, but this package is the one that you are using.
Yeah, exactly. Makes a lot of sense, right?
Yes, it does. So that we can have consistency. That's good.
That's good. And who doesn't want a paper trail? That's always something good to have as well.
That's good. All right. So my first one is actually one of yours that I have stolen, and it has to do with monitoring, because since the beginning of time almost, or at least the beginning of time for FnO, one of the main concerns have been, how do we monitor FnO? And the answer from Microsoft has always been LCS. And most big enterprises ask, what is this LCS thing you're talking about? And you explain to them that this is a management portal for FnO. And they say, okay, so we are going to monitor everything else in one place and only FnO in LCS. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so can we send
cool,
like
right? Compared to what we were
it's really cool and it's nice design and so on. Can we send notifications? No. So we actually have to sit and watch it. Yes, absolutely. No, that's not going to work. Actually, that is not going to work whatsoever. So one of the things that's been on the backlog for a really, really long time is a good way to monitor things. And I'm actually going to bring up two different things right now, because one of those are that within FnO, you're able to connect your FnO environment to Azure App Insights. So you can actually, with the URL within FnO, tell it to send all of the logs to an App Insights instance. And that is a really, really good thing, because then you actually get everything in one place. You don't risk it getting lost. You don't risk it getting deleted. You can save it as long as you want. You can even push it out to a data lake once the retention time goes out. So you can actually save it basically forever if you want. You can go back and get like performance telemetry from like years before and see trends and so on. So that's really, really good. It will also save all of the exceptions, all of the user sessions, everything to App Insights, which is good. Yeah. But what we also have is a possibility to do the same things with point of sales terminals. That has also been one of the problems, because you either install it in an Android environment or you install it on a Windows PC. And if you install it on a Windows PC, it makes it a bit easier, because then you usually have like some kind of an SCCM agent or something collecting logs and sending it back to SCCM. But now you can actually have the POS terminal directly sending the logs back to App Insights. Yeah, the commerce which means logs. That you can... Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And which means that you can actually collaborate them between the FnO logs and the POS logs. So if you see an issue with a POS client, you will actually have the same timestamp in the FnO logs. Yeah,
and you will also get another part of the story, I suspect, with the commerce scale unit as well. So you get like the whole... It's very chatty, so it's going to be interesting to see. It's a lot of calls going back and forth here, so it's interesting to see how much data and volume this will generate. But and of course it makes sense that it's a step with in the the allocation of LCS. I mean, moving it out. But again, Johan, as you say, it's been on the wish list since day one, basically, to be able to streamline all logging events here. But it makes sense. Otherwise, you'll have to have someone who understands how to troubleshoot in LCS. But still, you need someone to understand the commerce complexity, basically, or knowing how to do it. But it opens up a bunch of new scenarios, not the least like fraud detection patterns, as well as also interesting to see catching a lot of log on, log off sessions, etc.
Yeah, and also that a lot of companies actually do like analytics on the logs, just to be able to see like spikes in events and so on. Not that as you're saying, that the IT department mostly will not understand most of what it says in the App Insights logs, but that doesn't matter, because if they see a big spike in X++ exceptions, for instance, then you can point them to say that, okay, this happened after we did our last release. Okay, so we broke something, then we need to fix it.
Yeah, so there are a lot of cool pattern detections there that you can imply. Like now we see, we usually get one or two of these event IDs or whatever the log is. But now we have an abnormal amount. So those patterns are really interesting to apply. Yeah,
And the good thing is also that there has been a lot of limitations within LCS. Yeah. For instance, you have only a fixed amount of maximum time spans that you can analyze and so on. So you need actually to do it in a specific time when it happens and so on. So I think this is really good.
It's been quite a challenge sometimes to narrow it down, not to say the least.
Yes.
Cool. I'll continue that note on POS side. Another self-service or self-serve diagnosis capabilities. This is more on the POS authentication on the sign-in. It's a new feature that provides self-serve diagnosis capabilities to help store employees and managers identify and fix like POS sign-in issues. So what it means is they've extended the amount of error messages and made them more clear. It explicitly says that it's improved to provide concrete root cause information. I haven't been able to test these out yet to see what it means. But another feature that I thought worth mentioning is a test logon function is now available. On the worker page in Commerce, you have these like validation buttons where you can check that the setup is complete. Now there is a test logon function where you can actually test, is it possible for this worker to log on to the POS, where you can simulate POS sign-in. So you get an extra validation step to prevent, because it is one thing to be like configuring all the workers, setting up all the POSs. It's a whole other thing to be there on the floor and you have to install 20 POSs before the store opens and you run into an error. It can be quite stressful for those poor installers being out there. So the more validations and checks you can do beforehand, before rolling out, the better. So this is a nice feature, I think. The function provides an actionable troubleshooting guides, so you can see why did it not work? Why couldn't I log on? Hopefully. So it's a good little feature.
Yes. So my next one is actually a warehouse management feature, which I thought sounded interesting, and I think I've actually understood what it means. So it has to do with multi-level detours in the warehouse applications. So you can actually force your warehouse workers to do a specific thing before they do another thing. Yeah. You can actually make it like a workflow, so that if they are going to for instance, if they're going to pick from a license plate shipping, then they actually have to first pick the license plate and then things. And also if you have issues with inventory, for instance, you can force them to actually fix the inventory issue before they pick things. Yeah. For the order and so on. So you press one menu item in the app and you actually end up in a completely different place because you need to do this first, unless you can do this later.
Yeah.
So
based on some like a query or logic, depending on who you are or what you're doing, right? Yeah, exactly. That's really cool. I mean, there are a number of scenarios there. I saw one at a previous client where they had like, which I think everyone has in some regard, problems with lacking master data, specifically like weight information on a lot of items. And in order for like an automatic warehouse to work properly, you need to really have like the measurements at least of the boxes. Otherwise, you don't know where it fits, right? So one option would be to trigger items where we need some kind of more information on that item, and then you could route the worker to a specific station or other application, but it only fires if we are missing some type of data on it, and you need to measure it. That's a classic scenario where if you don't have weight, perhaps, and you need to have weight, then okay, items that doesn't have weight, you need to route them through here, and otherwise you can carry on as normal. It's really cool.
Yep. I think that's good, because that sort of forces the worker to adhere to the specified process and not make as many errors.
Yeah.
I know we have an issue with the customer right now where they need to add freight to an order before they send it off, and they have some kind of a process picking up orders that doesn't have freight and fixing it. So this could possibly be one of those things that you can't really send the order unless you have verified that it has freight or something like that.
And it's going to create a lot of frustration for the poor workers out there who actually need to use it. It makes sense to kind of see if the efficiency of amount of picked lines per hour decreases dramatically. Then maybe you should not reroute. You should keep the existing one. Worth measuring, right? I'll carry on that torch from the supply chain part with another new feature. It's actually an old feature that is new and improved and rebranded. It's the Sensor Data Intelligence add-in for supply chain management. It's a renamed version of the previous IoT Intelligence add-in. Basically, it's sensor data, right? It's an application. It's an add-in tool where you can configure IoT hub, basically sensor data from machines and equipment, in order to, from an ERP perspective, update maintenance asset counter values. And it's I think they've simplified the installation part here of the actual component, and specifically it's on your own subscription. Basically, you're using Azure components. Again, another step here to. Well, it says it's because then you are in control, and it makes sense. Then you can control it, but then it's not included in the license, right? And it's scalable. So a lot of different stuff, machine status. You can do product quality, but it's using sensor readings like moisture, temperature. You can predict predictive maintenance, where if you know something has been running or vibrations are coming up, then you can track it in 365. Supply chain management. So something I think we'll look into a little bit more down the line by installing the add-in. And I can also recommend here for anyone who is interested but lacks sensors, there's a number of quite not too expensive, at least, sensor. You have the Azure development, I don't remember, it's MX something chip, where it's a development chip. Basically, you can order it from Amazon or any other source, where you can you get a lot of sensors. You get an IoT hub compatible little chip that's powered by a micro USB, which you can use in a number of like development and testing scenarios. I have one of my own, and it's really fun to just get it and try out different scenarios. We built one before at the office, I think, where if someone opened a door, it triggered a notification in Teams. So you could do all of those things, or you could evaluate this scenario here, but you can do it in the comfort of your office.
Yeah, and the good thing with this add-in is also that you don't have to build a lot of interfaces in it abstracts the Azure IoT components to FnO, so you don't have to build them in FnO. It talks to Azure, and whatever some smart person has done in Azure, you can actually use and leverage in FnO, which is good.
Plug and play, but it's plug and play but scalable, right?
No code, that's the future.
No code, just a lot of data.
Yes. So my next one is actually reporting related. There is something that I feel is a good thing in FnO called electronic reporting, and one of the issues from my end, being a technical specialist, when it comes to electronic reporting is that it has a lot of dependencies. So there is actually a lot of, you can think of it as multiple Lego pieces, and if all of the Lego pieces aren't in the correct place and the correct version, then nothing will work. And you often notice this just before go live, and everyone is trying to test things and they've missed some dependency and nothing works and everyone is mad. So a good thing that is actually coming with the 30 release is a validation function. So you can actually validate a specific business document and verify that you have the correct versions, you have all of the dependencies in place, and so on, without actually having to run it, because it might be in production. So you can't run it. You can't send a file off to the bank because it's in production. But what you can do is that you can actually validate the entire process, but without actually doing anything.
Yeah.
You can verify that there are no missing prerequisites or something like that.
Cool. All right, that's really cool. I have another one. It's coming. It's basically the e-commerce site catching up and implementing the Power Virtual Agents. I've tried this out. Have you worked with the Power Virtual Agents, Johan? Have we tried it out? Anything?
No, not that much actually. I think they are cool, but they are a bit above my level at the moment. I haven't had the time and the focus to be able to sit down with them.
I understand. I tried it out. I think I see, a number of scenarios. One being like IT internal, helping out in any case where you have like a lot of documentation, you have an FAQ document or anything like that. It's really powerful because you could basically just throw it in there and it will generate that number of suggested questions and answers for you. It's really pretty cool. It was at least a year ago I tried that. It's probably even better now. The feature here is basically enabling chat on an e-commerce site using Power Virtual Agents bot. Makes total sense. It's the Microsoft e-commerce site. Why wouldn't it have the Power Virtual Agents bot, of course? But it's for support requests. I haven't tried it out, but the Power Virtual Agents framework is like, it's a Power Platform, right? So you could probably connect it to any support process or external system, I would imagine, via Dataverse at least, that you have. And I'm going to try it out hopefully next week internally, at least in a Contoso environment, to see how it works. But it's not only like support requests. The Power Virtual Agents is cool, but I haven't seen it used live. It's unfortunate because I think it has a lot of potential, at least, to resolve these. But maybe people always have someone else to ask, I suppose, internally. But if you have a lot of scenarios where people go into a document and search for it, it's a clear-cut case for just build a chatbot, build a Power Virtual Agent for it instead.
That's good. So my final one is actually also related to electronic reporting. And the thing is with electronic reporting is that traditionally they have been fairly basic documents. So like basic Excel files, basic XML files, JSON files. They are basically made for communicating with a system at the other end. So it's not meant to send it to people. It's meant to send to a receiving system, like a tax report for UK or something like that. That is one of the uses. And in that case, it's perfect to send an XML because the computer doesn't mind if it looks pretty or something like that. But in this case, they have actually started building out these documents and starting using them for other things. So one of the features that is coming now is the possibility to add pictures, images to the Excel format files that electronic report is sending. So you could, for instance, use it for having a logo on your picking list, for instance. That's one of the things. But you could also have it like sending spec sheets for certain products and have them have like a product image linked directly in the tables and so on. So I think that's a good improvement, and I think it's one of those frameworks that I think will just get better and better as time goes on.
Yeah, I agree. I have two like smaller ones, so I'll take those directly here. One is a feature coming for a SQL query statement timeout. Just worth mentioning. I mean, it's a timeout that runs for if you have a query, it will time out in 3 hours for an individual query. That is, if you have that, that's probably a problem that you should fix anyway. But worth mentioning that if you have that long-running queries running probably custom batch jobs, you need to know that it will be timed out unless you use the query timeout API, and then you can override the default value. But again, that should be like a temporary fix. You should probably look into that statement query execution, maybe split it up a little bit. Another performance coming feature for the source document framework. This is something that I think was introduced in AX 2012. And it has created both some performance issues, but it's basically a way to track source of specific documents. And it's a new feature where it splits the processing into smaller units of work to help prevent system degradation. It's the first release here is applicable for free text invoices only. So worth looking into, at least if you experience problems with performance when it comes to posting of documents, invoices, purchase orders, etc. Makes sense to look into this. If you have issues now with free text invoice performance posting, you should look into enabling this feature for version 30.
Cool. So I'm thinking that we are done for today, actually.
Yes, that was it for today. Thank you, Johan.
And yes, and with that, we have a couple of episodes in the pipe coming up. Interesting people that we do interviews with. Yeah, but until then, have a nice time and see you later.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.